Assam. Wow. Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, so we have close to around 150 people in the room. I am going to wait for a little bit more of you to sort of join in. We're close to 150 students, so without taking much time, I am going to run a quick poll question for this evening session. There will be a question popping up on your screen shortly. For all those of you who've just tuned in, if you could take a second. Hello, everyone. So your first question, your first poll question for this evening is on your screen today. And the question is, what do you think is the main reasons for companies like ByteDance, which is the parent company for TikTok, Canva, Skims, which we are going to be talking about in detail, and Shein achieving the unicorn status, which means that their valuations are exceeding $1 billion. So what do you think is one of the main reasons for companies like this for achieving the unicorn status? Your answers are innovative products or technology, strong marketing and branding, successful expansion strategies, significant private equity investments, or all of the above. So yeah, whichever one that you think is the best option, or if you think all of these reasons could be a contributing factor, please take a second and drop in your answer there. Let's see what you guys think. And then we are going to jump straight into the masterclass. So the question is on your screens for the next 10 seconds. I would love to call everyone in the audience to please drop in their answers so we get an understanding of what do you feel is the main reasons that these companies are achieving the unicorn status. So the poll question is on your screen. If I could have people just put in their answers, I'm going to be ending the poll question very, very shortly. So whoever's in the audience, please drop in your answers, and then we are going to dive right into this very, very interesting topic for today. So with this, I'm going to end the poll question now, and we will have the results on the screen shortly. Okay, so thank you for everyone who has put in the answers. Majority of you have said all of the above, followed closely by strong marketing and branding. Okay, so thank you everyone for dropping in your answers. We shall be knowing a lot more about what it is. So before we get started, a quick round of introductions. I would like to begin by introducing myself. My name is Sabahat Hurzuk. I'm a senior manager with Seed Global Education. We are a UK headquartered company which facilitates interactions between top global universities like the one that we have today with us and prospective students like yourself who are looking at a chance to study abroad, giving you a chance to connect with the faculty of these institutions, get a taste of what are different programs, how are the classes being held, and to therefore help you make informed choices about your study abroad journey or your careers abroad. I have with me today Dr. Negri. Thank you so much for joining us, who is a fellow of the Corporate Finance and Real Estate Department at SDA Bocconi School of Management and a fellow at Bafi Karafin at Bocconi University. I am not going to go into a lot of introductions. She has prepared a wonderful introduction, and I'm going to leave that to her. A very, very interesting topic that she is going to be talking about today is Kim Kardashian's Skim, a $4 billion secret. So we'll get a chance to divulge into the world of corporate evaluation, private markets, understand why the staggering valuation, and so on and so forth. So I'm going to leave that bit to her. I'm going to quickly also welcome Veronica Sulu, who's here with us today. Thank you so much, Veronica. So Veronica is the graduate recruitment coordinator. She's been working with Bocconi University for 20 years and has been recruiting international students such as yourself since the first Bachelor in English program was offered at Bocconi University. Wow. She now coordinates marketing and recruitment activities for Bocconi's Master of Science program. So thank you so much, both of you wonderful ladies, for joining us today. And yeah, looking forward to a power-packed masterclass. So without further ado, I hand over the stage, so to say, to Dr. Negri, if you can get started with your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Sabahat. So very nice meeting you. Let me just share my screen so that you should see my presentation now. All right, so something about me before we delve into the content of today. Okay, So my name is Giulia Negri. I'm a professor of finance. I am fully made in Bocconi, so I did both my bachelor and my master at Bocconi University. And what I typically say to my students at Bocconi is that I was so happy when I was a student that I decided to come back as a professor. Joking aside, I was very, very happy with my overall path of education. And I hope to meet you, many of you, maybe in the course of the Master of Science or in the summer school, where I also teach a course about private equity and venture capital. In my life, I have lived in 5 countries so far and still counting, and I have 1 husband and 1 kid. So these are the numbers about me, and that you should know of before we go into the topic. But it's not me that is the topic of today, is the more important guys. So about the others, I'm sure that many of you know who this guy is, and he's Bill Gates, and he's the founder of Microsoft. And as you know, Microsoft has a market value of $2.5 trillion. I just want to check with you more of the flavor of the numbers that we are going to talk about today. So first, remember, all throughout the presentation, $2.5 trillion for Microsoft. And then this is Mark Zuckerberg. I'm sure that many of you know him. He's the founder of Meta Platforms, and the market value of this company is more than $700 billion. And then the third one I want to talk to you about is Jack Ma, that he's one of the founders of Alibaba. Alibaba is currently $250 billion worth in market value. But these are not the only people I want to mention today to you. So we've said Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerberg, and Jack Ma for Microsoft, Meta Platforms, and Alibaba. And this guy, do you know who this guy is? Maybe some of you know. This is Liang Rubo, and he is one of the founders of ByteDance. ByteDance, again, is worth more than 200 billion in value. Again, remember this number, remember this. And then we have Melanie Perkins. Melanie Perkins founded Canva, that is a software, basically a software company located in Australia that is now worth $40 billion. And then we have, you know, Kim Kardashian. She doesn't need any introduction. I'm sure that many of you know her, and her the startup to where she also collaborates is called Skims, and they produce basically underwear, and its value $4 billion. Now we've said Microsoft, Meta Platforms, and Alibaba, and then we said ByteDance and Canva and Skims. So these 6 companies, what do Microsoft, Meta, and Alibaba have in common with respect to ByteDance, Canva, and Skims? They are these companies, they are public companies, and these companies, they are private companies. And what is actually the difference between public company and a private company? Well, a public company, for a public company, you can basically buy the publicly listed shares. So every day you can buy those shares, every day the price change. So what it means that it also the value of the company changes every day, if not every minute, depending on how many people buy and how many people sell those stocks. On the contrary, in a private company, the buying and selling of the company, they take place in private markets. So we already have an idea. So public, everything happens under the light of the sun in the stock exchange. On the contrary, in a private transaction, this happens in meeting rooms. It doesn't happen in the outside. So it's a private transaction. So where only the parties involved, they know what they are buying and the value of what they are selling. But I just would like to ask you something. Among these private companies, we've seen Canva, we've seen ByteDance, and we've seen Skims, but there are many, many more. Sabat before mentioned also Shine. There are many companies that, despite being private, they are worth $1 billion of value. And we have a specific name for those companies. These companies, they are called unicorns. A unicorn is technically a private company, so it's fundamental that the status is private, so it mustn't be listed. In fact, if a private company then becomes public, they lose the status of unicorn when their market value is larger than $1 billion, which is huge if you think about that. In a public market, everyone can buy those shares, so it's easy to understand how and in which way those companies get to a very high value. In the private market, how can they reach such a high amount of value? Where are the unicorns? Literally, they are everywhere, like literally. Actually, this is a representation of all the unicorns by value. So you see that the bigger the bubble, the bigger the valuation for the companies located in the US, in China, in India. We have many unicorns like Razorpay or Swiggy. We have many in Europe. You can see really the distribution. They are literally everywhere. And I would say, who enables them? Who is going to carry out those private transactions in a way that the value of those companies reaches more than $1 billion. We have a very specific name for it, and that is the private equity and venture capital industry, enabled by the private equity and venture capital operators. And this is what I want to talk to you about today in the next 15 minutes. Now, many of you know already what a private equity and a venture capital operator is, but I would just like to set some foundations. So first of all, we can say what the private equity is not. And the private equity is not a bank. In fact, private equity, what they do, they invest in the equity of a company. And what they do, they inject cash in returns for share. So unlike a bank gives cash, and then at some point, the company will have to pay back this amount to the bank with also interest expenses. For a private equity, this doesn't happen because a private equity becomes an investor into the company. So they will, would say, their stake into the company will increase in value if the company itself also increases in value. And so the private equity investor will become a shareholder into the company. So the private equity or the venture capitalists, they will lead the company together with the entrepreneur or the management team. But I would like to say something very obvious, and forgive me for saying this, private equity is not public equity. And most importantly, what are the differences between the public equity and the private equity? I wouldn't say size, because we have seen that we have many unicorns that are actually very, very big in their valuation. We have seen ByteDance that is actually called literally an hectacorn. So those private companies whose value is larger than $100 billion. So size is not really something that we can mention among the differences. I would say that the differences are three: the pricing mechanism, the liquidity, and the monitoring. So all these three will make us understand how the venture capital industry and how companies that are private can reach a valuation of $4 billion, of $40 billion, or even $225 billion. Let's start with the first one, with pricing. I mean, pricing, if you want to buy a share of Microsoft, what do? You just call your broker, or, you call an agency and you ask them, hey, dear broker, can you please buy, 1,000 shares of Microsoft? And they say, okay, the price is X. Do you want to buy it? Yes. Do you not want to buy it? Okay. So pricing is fixed. Contrarily, in the private equity market, we don't have an entry price that is fixed by the stock exchange, but the entry price is based on the negotiation between the entrepreneur, so the founder, and the private equity operator. So when the private equity enters into the shares of the company, they have to pay an entry price, and when they will exit from the company, they will receive an exit price. And you may say, oh, but why do they exit? Well, because they are investors. They are not entrepreneurs. So they invest, but when they invest, they know that this investment is already defined in time. So after 5, 6, 7 years, they will exit from the company. So we will have to negotiate with the entrepreneur of the company the entry price when we become shareholders of the company, and then the exit price when we will exit from the company. And the difference basically between the two is what determines the internal rate of return on the investment. So of course, I don't need to tell you that the bigger the spread between entry price and entry price, the better for the private equity investor. So we have understood that in the public market, so on the stock exchange, pricing is fixed and is set in advance. On the contrary, in the private equity sector, this is made out of the negotiation between the investor and the entrepreneur. And then, second point, the liquidity. What we say is that the private equity investor finds itself in a liquidity cage. Why is that? Well, because of course, at some point, the private equity, again, they are not entrepreneurs. They don't want to manage the company. They want to exit from the company. So at some point, they have to exit. But remember what we said before, we want to have a big spread between entry and exit. So on the one side, we want to exit because it's the only way in which we monetize from the investment. But on the other side, we really have to find the right buyer for our stake because we don't want to lose money on the investment. So we are in a sort of liquidity cage. On the contrary, in the public market, if after 2 days you are already tired of the shares you own from Microsoft, you call back your broker and you say, hey, you know what? I'm already tired of holding Microsoft shares. I would like to sell them. No problem. In 1 minute, they are sold. Private equity, it doesn't work like that. It's much longer. There's no transparency. It's an opaque market. So actually, of course, it takes time for the private equity to negotiate also on the exit price. And then the last point is actually, if I can say, the trickiest one. When we buy shares on the stock market, we have a supervisory body that checks that everything is in place, that every company that is listed discloses their annual reports, discloses their numbers, even discloses their plans, because everyone in the world can potentially buy those shares regardless of their financial literacy. So it's of the utmost importance that there are bodies that supervise the listed companies. On the contrary, private equity, I don't need to tell you, you already understood. This is just based on the contract between the private equity investor and the company. So of course, everything has to be written in the contract. And if something goes wrong, I'm sorry, but there's no supervisory body that checks on the private companies because, as the name itself says, they are private, so they don't have to disclose anything on the outside. Now, I know that when we approach the world of private equity in general, there's a lot of confusion because sometimes we hear in the press or we read on the news, like this fund invested or this private equity firm invested, these GPs, LPs. So there's a lot of buzzwords in this world. So I would like to make a little bit of clarity among all these names. So first of all, we have to say that private equity investor is the same as private equity firm, same as private equity, and the same as GPs. However, a fund is not a private equity firm. A fund, we will see in 1 second, a fund is a pool of money that is managed by a private equity firm. And then again, it's another thing to say investors and limited partners. And we will see that in a second. So we can just say that the private equity firm launches a private equity fund with the money of the investors. So we get something. We get that there's a fund, that is a pool of money saved and stored in one bank, in a custodian bank. And this fund has been raised with the money of LPs, of pure investors, but it's managed by private equity firm. Now, let's understand together who are these players, these actors. So first of all, a private equity firm is an asset management company that is allowed to invest in private companies. Why do I have to specify that this company is allowed to invest in private companies? Because of what we said before, it's clear now that investing in a public company is much easier, because of course they publish their reports, they are followed by analysts, there are specific rules that they have to comply with. In the private market, it's like everything is based on the contract, so there's no authority that supervises this kind of investment. So they have to be specific asset management companies that are allowed to invest in private companies because of the opaqueness of this industry. And then, who are the investors? Who are the investors? Are the owners of the money managed into the fund, and they are universities. For example, especially in the US, Harvard, Yale, Princeton, they have their own endowment. So what they do, they give money to private equity investors to have it invested. And then, of course, banks, this all over the world, banks, they put the money into the fund in order for the private equity firm to manage that money. And one thing that you may ask is, okay, but banks, they have money. Why don't they invest directly into the private company? Why don't they invest directly into private equity and they have to put the money in the fund and then the fund invests? Because of what we said before. We said before that private equity investors are allowed to invest in private companies and banks are not, or simply it's too cumbersome for them, because of course they have to produce a lot of paperwork, a lot of regulations, and it's not convenient for banks to invest in private companies. And then insurance companies, and then they don't do this directly, but through a fund for the same reasons as banks. Foundations, so like Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, for example, or other charities, foundations all over the world. High net worth individuals, so all the individuals whose net worth is larger than, let's say, $20 million. So they are simply very rich, and however, they don't know how to invest that money. So they rely on a fund launched by professionals that know the rules of asset management. And then family offices, again, for the reason above, maybe they have a lot of liquidity, but they lack of the competence to administrate this kind of funds. And private equity fund, it's the vehicle. So it's the vehicle that is allowed to then invest into the private company. So it's basically a pool of money that belongs to LPs, to the investors, so to the bank, to the insurance companies, to the university. So the money belongs mostly to them, but it's managed by the private equity investors. So this is the typical structure that we would have for a private equity investor launching a fund A with the money of all the investors, as you can see. And the fund at the same time invests in different companies at the same in the same moment. Okay, so enough with the technicalities, and let's go back to our unicorns. So how the real question that we have to ask now that we have understood more or less how the industry works, how can private equity generate companies with a market value larger than $1 billion? And the answer is pretty simple. So what is Skims and all the other is actually secret. So there is an eternal battle in corporate valuation between value and price. And I know what you're thinking, because most of the companies that are unicorns are not producing cash. They have negative, they have a negative profit. They are recording losses. So why are they, why is their market value so large? Because of this never-ending duality between value and price. In fact, look at this. This is an old bicycle from the 19th century, and today we don't see them anymore. So imagine if you have in your basement this kind of bicycle. I mean, what is the value of this bicycle? The value of this bicycle is probably zero, because probably brakes do not work, the wheels cannot fit anywhere, probably even the steer would not work. However, what if you find a collector of old bicycle? Then the price is going to increase. And that is the same concept. So in startups, sometimes we see that a startup has a negative economic financial KPIs, but despite this, their price is much larger because of this, because the value and the price are two completely different things. The value is based on the amount of cash flow that a company can generate, and the price is based on the market demand. So, long story short, however, what it takes for a company to be sold at a high price, like an old bicycle, I would say three things. It takes to be a temporary status. So startup typically are a temporary status, because typically the founders of startup, they want to grow big. The business of a startup to become a unicorn and to become a big company has to be scalable. It means that it has to be, it can be easily scalable in many countries all over the world in a very easy way, and repeatable. That is the most important feature. It must be the same in India, it must be the same in Italy, it must be the same in the US. And if you pay attention to all the unicorns, in common, they have these three features, and they represent the definition that is of Bob and Dork, that are two writers of Harvard Business School. So never forget that for a unicorn to become a unicorn, it takes three things. It must be a temporary status, so the founders have to work to take the company big. The business must be scalable, and it must be repeatable. So I would like to thank you all for your attention, and I hope I was able to make you curious about the private equity and venture capital industry. And I'm here for you if you have some questions in the next couple of minutes.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Negri. That was very, very insightful. We do have a few questions in the audience, which I am going to take very quickly before I let you go. So very interesting question from Margaret, who's from Ghana. Hi, Margaret. And Margaret says that she currently works in a private equity firm in Ghana, where they are required by the Securities and Exchange to report on the fund and the fund manager. Now, what she's saying is that what she knows is that they use the limited liability structure in Ghana, unlike other countries that use the limited partnership agreement. So what she wants to know is that, she wants to ask is that if the reporting that they do in Ghana in any ways goes against the operations of PE, or goes against the operations of private equity, so to speak.
Okay, so this is a great question, because also in my classes, I have questions from students all over the world when I typically present the structure that we use in Europe and in the US. I would like to tell Margaret that in order to invest in a private equity business, the structure has always to be the same. So I didn't put any label on purpose. You always have to have a vehicle that invests, whether it is a trust, whether it is a fund, whether it is a closed-end fund in Europe, for example, and this fund has to be participated by, for the most part, the pure investors, so banks, insurance companies, etc., and to a very, very small part by the private equity industry. What you are referring to, I think in particular, is a structure that is commonly shared also in the US. And the limited partnership agreement is actually the way in which we call the contract that exists between the limited partners, so the the pure investors, and the GPs, so the pure investors. Again, I wouldn't concentrate on labels too much, and this is what I always tell to my students, but I would always concentrate on finding some sort of same structure. So again, vehicle, who are the pure investors, and who are the managers.
All right, great. A follow-up to her question is, are PE or VC fund managers required to make a contribution towards the fund, and what proportion are they supposed to contribute in general?
Right. Very good question, Margaret. I'm happy to see these kind of questions. So I can tell you the parameters that we have in Europe and the parameters that we have in the UK and then in the US. So in the UK and the US, the private equity are required to invest at least 1%, whereas in Europe is 2%. And I guess that all over the world, these percentages, they are more or less the same. I know that in China is also 2%. So more or less is between 1% and 2%. But yes, they are required. Why? So to align the interest of the managers, so of the private equity, and the ones of the LPs that are, at the end of the day, those who put the money into the fund. Maybe I have time for another question?
Yes. Just two more, I promise you. Okay. So the next one is from Ananda, who's asking, are there any restrictions on equity investors on the type of industries that they can invest in? Are they allowed to invest in, let's say, industries like defense or cybersecurity? What would be your take on that?
Very, very interesting question. So I have to say that it depends on the private equity firm. So each firm is free to decide the industries and the sectors where they want to invest. And most of the times they tend to invest in very risky assets. However, there are some sectors such as cyber securities or defense where very few players invest. Why? Because today the attention of the LPs, so of the investors, is more towards sustainable projects and sustainable economy. So there are private equity investors that prefer to say that they invest just in specific sectors that, for example, reduce the emission of CO2, or, for example, do not invest in sectors where there is weapons or there's no tobacco. So we see more and more private equity firms restricting the sectors where they invest. Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, please go on. There was just a follow-up question on that, but please go ahead.
No, I also wanted to add that most of the times the private equity firms are forbidden to invest in real estate. So because typically we have private equity and then real estate. So typically private equity firms don't invest directly in real estate. This is what I wanted to add.
No problem. Thank you. Thank you so much. We have a question from Jatin, and he's asked this question quite a few times. What Jatin wants to know is, why is the word internal attached in the word IRR? So why do we call it, why do we call it as internal return on rate of return?
Internal rate of return, and is the return on each single investment. So it's basically how much, what is the rate at which the money that you have invested in year zero grew at towards the end of the investment. I honestly don't know why we have internal at the beginning. I think it's just a formality because it's specific for each specific investment. But I gotta say, good question. Sometimes in finance we have acronyms and we forget about the real meaning. Good for you, Jatin.
Thank you. Thank you. One last question before I let you go for today.
Yeah.
This question is by Pawan, who wants to know, what are the skills one should acquire to get into PE and VC field?
Oof, that's a tough one. So I gotta say that every time that I talk to a private equity operator, I think they are more, don't take me wrong, they are more psychologists than others. Why? They have to master valuation. They have to know valuation methodology from A to Z in a snap. But what really values a good private equity investor is the ability to spot opportunities for the company, and it's the ability to support the entrepreneur. When the private equity invests into the company, they become shareholders with the entrepreneur. So they are driving the same car, but they are two. And if two people are driving the same car and they're not aligned, they go into the ditch. So of course, a good private equity investor has to have the ability of listening and pushing the entrepreneur in outside the comfort zone to make his company expand and grow.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Negri. That is all for the questions. Thank you so much for joining us today and for a wonderful session. I know I, for one, got a lot to learn, and I'm sure everyone in the audience did. So thank you so much for your time. Everyone who's in the audience, please stick around. We now have Veronica, who is going to be coming on shortly. And Veronica is going to be talking about the graduate programs which are offered by Bocconi University. But before I bring Veronica on, we have close to 410 of you in the audience and counting more as I go. Thank you. I'm going to quickly run a very short poll very quickly to understand what is it that you're looking for. So if all of you in the audience can have a look at the screen which is popped up in front of you and let me know which factor excites you most while considering Italy as a study destination. Your options are the quality of academic programs and university, affordability and availability of scholarship, the rich culture and historic experience. I would definitely go for that. The visa and immigration policies, career options and post-graduation prospects, the language and learning opportunities, the vibrant lifestyle and cuisine, of course, or others. So very quickly, to everyone who's in the audience, if you could just quickly let us know which of these factors is something that really draws you close to considering or wanting to go to Italy as a study destination. I am going to very quickly end this poll question. So for all those of you who are still answering, just tap on that button and let me know which of these factors really sort of excites you. Okay, so I am going to just wait a little bit more before I sort of end it. All of the options are on your screen. I'm going to end the poll now and announce the results. As you can see, the results are on your screen with the majority of you going for quality of academic programs and universities. Wow, that's a great starting point. So with this, Veronica, I now hand it over to you to give us insights into the Bocconi graduate programs. Thank you so much, Veronica. Veronica, you're on mute.
I'm sorry, I was trying to share my screen, but there was a glitch. Now you should see it. First of all, I wanted to say ciao, hello to everybody connected here. And actually, before starting my presentation, I would just give you a hint as one of the questions to Professor Negri related to the skills to become a private equity manager or to work in investment banking is definitely to attend a master at Bocconi University. So I'm here to tell you more about this institution that is in Milano, Italy. The campus is an urban campus in downtown Milano, hosting more than 15,000 students, more than 100 nationalities, and as you can see, a huge number of students from all over the world, also from India. We have several students joining us for bachelor and master degrees. Just let me add that I've been working at Bocconi University since 2001, when we started offering programs entirely in English. So I've seen a flow of students from abroad coming, a few dozens in the past, a few hundreds, and now it's a few thousand. So I'm very proud of the work that my university have been doing. Just for your information, you have been hearing about Bocconi because we also have a branch in India, in Mumbai, where we organize executive master programs. Today, I will be talking about Master of Science programs, the ones that you can attend right after the bachelor without any working experience. The master programs, as you can see, we have the Master in Finance, that is...
Sorry, Veronica, we are unable to see your screen.
Oh,
your
excuse
presentation
me.
is not being shared yet.
Excuse me, let me try again.
Sure, not a problem. Everyone in the audience, just give us a few seconds. Veronica will be back.
Can you see it now?
No, not yet. It's not yet showing.
That's weird. Wait.
Veronica, you can email me your presentation. I will share it.
Here you can see it.
No, not yet.
Because I have a sharing paused, but now, wait. Can you see it now?
No, not yet.
Let me try the last time.
Sure.
No, you don't see it.
No, not yet.
I don't know
if you
why
can just email it to me, I'll present it while you're...
Yes, just a few minutes. I'm sorry, because I don't know what. Can you just...
No problem.
I just disconnect and reconnect in a second, because maybe that was the problem.
Sure. So Veronica will be joining us shortly. I'm sure you all had a very, very insightful session by Dr. Negri, got to learn a lot more about private equity markets, about the unicorn valuations, etc. Veronica will be joining us very shortly and going into the depths of making you understand about the programs that Bocconi University has to offer, about scholarships, admission criteria, etc. For everyone in the audience, please stay tuned. It is going to be a very, very insightful session. For all of you who have any questions about the university, about admissions, fundings, etc., you can please drop your questions in the Q&A box, which is present on your screen. And for everyone who's dropping in questions, if some others of you also have similar questions, feel free to upvote on those questions so that I will be taking all of those questions at the end of this presentation for you to gain insights about what Bocconi University has to offer, or any other questions relating to funding, admissions, etc. So Veronica is here again. I see Veronica now. Let's
Excuse me, let's try again.
Sure, no problem. Perfect. We can see your screen now.
Great. I'm sorry that it took a few minutes. I don't know why Zoom or my connection today doesn't work well. So I was saying that some of our masters are highly ranked in international ranking, like the Master of Science in Finance. That is exactly what we have been talking about today, and the Master of Science in Management. As you can see, I mean, rankings usually provide some information about the quality of education and the recognition of a university within employers. So I think that Bocconi University is very well positioned. If I can add one more information about this, yesterday I met one of our bachelor students who did her summer internship in HSBC in London. There were hundreds of our students doing a summer internship in finance in London. This is a hotspot for us. There are more than 3,000 Bocconi graduates who live and work in the city of London. And this girl, she's only second year of bachelor. She was telling me after a summer internship at HSBC in London, she got not one, not two, three full-time job offers. And this is, I could finish my presentation here because I was surprised as well, as much of how much a very young student in finance could land job offers, full-time job offers in London in a world-renowned institution in such a quick time. So this is what I really want to convey as a message. If you are interested in finance in Europe, Bocconi is really at the top for providing students with placement in the most important banks and financial institutions in the UK, in London, in Frankfurt, in Paris, and in Milano, where I am today as well. That's why, because we, as Giulia, as our professor, testified earlier, she studied at Bocconi herself. She became a professor. She's studying and researching about the most, let's say, actual and up-to-date businesses, from Skims and Kim Kardashian to Amazon or Facebook. This is what we research, we study, and we teach students to make sure that when they get into the job market, when they get into private equity, they are able to recognize what is the job to be done and to perform it in the best and most successful way. Bocconi is also a worldwide institution that partners with many universities all over the world. Consider that during your master program at Bocconi, you can also spend one semester in one of the top business schools in Europe, Latin America, Europe, or Asia, but also double degrees. For finance, for example, we have double degrees with universities in France, like HEC, in Stockholm, like the Stockholm School of Economics, or London. So again, this is, let's say, at master level, we really push students to enrich their CV, do experiences abroad, do internship, be ready, because after the master, you are ready for the job market. And that's the next slide is really the most important information for a business school. I'm sure you will compare different business schools in Europe and elsewhere. Keep track of these numbers of how many employers, how many companies this university is able to reach. The photo you can see here is one of our job fairs where current students can reach out to companies from banks to the European Commission, to Accenture, to Procter & Gamble, Amazon, and so on, and start, you know, having internship and maybe offer for full-time jobs. This is done also thanks to our wide network of alumni and graduates all over the world. There are 75 chapters in all the cities of the world, from New York to Sao Paulo do Brazil to London, but also Asia, Singapore and Hong Kong, where you can meet fellow university students that are now working and will help you build your professional network and provide more job opportunities. Don't think that if you come to Italy, you will only be able to get a job in Italy. We organize Bocconi and Jobs fairs also in all over Europe, Paris, London, Frankfurt, Brussels. We used to organize it in China, but then for the last 3 years, we didn't do it. But I'm sure that there are still very interesting job opportunities in Asia, back home, in your case, in India, in Dubai. I know a few students from India who, after studying at Bocconi in Italy, they moved to work at IBM in London or at Kenwood in so appliances company in Dubai, or consulting in Dubai is very popular. We have a big and very young chapter of graduates in Dubai because it's a hot spot for our students to go working, especially at the beginning of their career. We also organize for finance, especially investment banking career days. And if you think that we started yesterday, it was our first day of university. I know the calendar is a bit different from India and you started a few weeks ahead compared to Europe. So yesterday we started the lessons, the classes, and in 1 week, finance students will already be able to meet investment bankings. Consider that finance for us is really one of our diamond programs. You start in September, by December, you already land a summer internship for the summer of the year after. And usually during the summer internship, as this girl that I mentioned earlier, you are offered a full-time job. So for finance in London especially, the process is very straightforward, very smooth. You start, in 6 months, you do a summer internship, in 6 months, you have a full-time job. So I wouldn't really worry about that. As I told you, I've been working for Bocconi for 15 years, and I've seen many students ending up in this way. So I wouldn't really worry. I always say that the main job of a business school is finding a good job to their students, because if students are successful, we will be successful. So we really work a lot to make sure that all our students are successful managers, entrepreneurs by the time they finish their master. A few information about the masters. Here you see some stats, some facts and figures about how long does it take to find a job. On our website, you will find more information. It's usually 2 weeks upon graduation that you are offered a full-time job. But again, many students, by the time of graduation, 83% here, they already have a job. So the good news is that you will be offered a full-time position before ending your master in Europe. And this is a great good news. Let's talk about the master. Today we are very much talking about finance, which is our really top-notch program, the one of the most recognized all over the world. But consider, if you are interested in other type of topics, from the management area that you can see here to the economics area, and consider that many graduates in pure economics and statistics go working for finance and banking because they are very good analysts. They are able to foresee the forecasts and so on. Same in terms of data science or artificial intelligence. More and more these type of skills are used to do forecast and analysis for finance. So this is again a backdoor entrance to the banking world. I would also mention the program in accounting, financial management and control, which is, on the other hand, the corporate finance, the CFO role. So it's working in finance, but inside the company, inside an institution. So one of my professors usually uses this example that I want to share with all of you. It's very much Italian because it's about soccer, calcio, football. So basically he says that the people working in finance are the ones watching the game, while the corporate finance people, the CFO, are the players that you look at. I'm not a big football fan, but for all of you who are football fans, I'm sure that the similarity is well understood. So the programs provide you with both deep knowledges, but also behavioral skills, critical thinking. And I reconnect to what Professor Giulia Negri said before. In order to be successful in the private equity, you also need to be a bit a psychologist. That's why we implement also soft skills, behavioral seminars, critical thinking, as well as extracurricular activities that provide you with 360 degrees knowledge, but also, you know, sensitivity when you have to talk to managers and to let them understand your point. That's in fact what we call enhancing experience activities. Basically, in the 2 years of the Master of Science, you'll have a first year which is very academic, okay? Usually after the first year of the Master of Science in Finance, you go for a summer internship. Then in the second year, you have electives, so you can specialize in fintech, in corporate finance, in stock exchange, or in investment banking, and there are so many specializations. You can go abroad for a semester or for a double degree, and you have a compulsory internship. So either you did it in the summer between year 1 and year 2, or you can do it at the end of year 2. Yesterday, we had a welcome event for Master of Science freshmen. And the professor was really mentioning this internship, these summer internships. Some students were asking about that because the finance students are very competitive. They want it all. They want to do everything and be successful. So she confirmed that many students also have 2 summer internships, one between year 1 and year 2, and one which is the final one before getting hired permanently in year 2. So this is a great chance. I also wanted to address another point because I saw it in the survey about visas. When you get a visa, a study visa to Italy, you also are allowed to stay 1 year after graduation and convert your student visa into a working professional visa. And that's, in my opinion, a very interesting point. This is specific of continental Europe. But again, I see also the girl I was talking to you about is an American girl, so non-European student who is in any case being hired by a bank in London full-time. No problems with visas because at that point we transfer it and UK is still within this scheme, let's say. I didn't forget about the foreign languages. You will be asked to learn a bit of Italian, but as you can see, besides my Italian accent that I like a lot, the education is entirely in English, and exams, lectures, materials, papers, staff like me are entirely English speaking, you will want to learn a bit of Italian, first to profit of all this, but especially in case you want to start also working in Italy. Deutsche Bank Italian branch, they speak Italian. Accenture in Italy, they speak Italian. So some Italian can be useful if you want to start your professional career here with us. A few more information about admissions. We select students based on a GMAT or GRE or a Bocconi test that you can do online, your GPA, and a CV and a personal statement. And here comes my personal suggestions. Try to make it personal. Try to let us understand what is your long-term idea about your career prospect, how we can help you achieve your dream job. This is our job in the university, to support students, provide all the skills that they need to find their dream job. So also in your personal statement, I'm not talking about Bocconi in particular, but I think all the universities, what they want to read, what they want to listen to is how much you want to study hard, to work hard, what is your dream job, how we can help you achieve it. So this is my point about application. You can apply twice throughout the year, from September to May. The applications are starting on mid-September. You see first round. We also have a specific application for students who spent a semester with us, but basically you can apply 2 times between September and May with a GMAT, or I know it's very popular in India, GRE score. Bocconi is a private university, so the tuition fees are the ones that you can see online. What I can tell you is that 1 out of 4 students receive some sort of financial aid overall, and it's no more 37 millions contributed to support scholarship, it's now 42 millions. So thanks to donors, to companies, to graduates and alumni, we are gathering money to be able to support students to study with us. The donors and the alumni are very important, and there are alumni who really want to support students from a specific country or for a specific program. So don't, my suggestion is apply. You just need to pay an application fee. And in the meantime, we can work on finding the right support, funding, scholarship, and so on. In fact, when you fill out and send the application for admission, you will be automatically evaluated for merit-based scholarship, the awards that you can see here in the slide. You don't need to apply for them. You need to write a very nice letter to write your CV, and to make sure all the elements I mentioned before are high quality. At that point, a commission with the Dean of the Graduate School, the Dean of International Affairs, my boss, who is the Director for Admission and Recruitment, will evaluate your profile, and you might find, together with admission results, congratulations, you got admitted, and you also got Merit Award. The Merit Award is 100% tuition waiver. At that point, you just need to fly to Milano. The international awards are 50% tuition waivers, and they have to do with multiculturality, diversion, and inclusion. Women awards are focused on female students admitted to the finance program, because we also want to balance the gender into the class. And if you look at it, many companies, many banks are also looking for diversity, and they welcome also more and more women and female in the banking and in industries that in the past were more male dominated, let's say. A few more information about our campus. Here in this photo, you can see one of our student residence halls with nice balconies and single rooms. But most importantly, we are in Milano. Milano is not the capital of Italy. We call it the moral capital of Italy. You see in this photo, it's the only one in Italy with these skyscrapers, and it hosts the Italian Stock Exchange. So you know that the capital of Italy is Rome, but Milano hosts the stock exchange. This should tell you something about how much our city, my city, is impregnated with finance. There are more than 130 branches of different banks, 4,000 multinational companies, because we are north of Italy, and so we are more connected to continental Europe. Milano has 3 airports. One, you can go with the metro in 15 minutes from the city center, and there are 7 other universities. This makes Milano a student city with more than 200,000 students, and I will be happy after this webinar to connect you with some of the students who are studying here with us. Last, these are just my contact details. So I think it's time to get questions. Please follow our Instagram account to make sure that you are updated on deadlines, events, opportunities, but also we are posting, for example, a whole series of summer internships where you can hear from our students.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Veronica. That was very, very insightful. If you could kindly stop sharing your screen,
Yes.
we can jump into the next bit. I see quite a few questions which have come up, and I'm going to try and take in as many questions as possible. So I'd like to begin by this question, which is from Rutvi, who's saying, considering Bocconi's international reach, the mode of teaching is English throughout, or do they have to learn Italian for the first semester and then sort of, change over, do a switch to the English language? What is the method which is followed?
It's the opposite. They start everything in English language, and students can graduate without getting to know Italian. It's fine for us. We are an international university, and even, even the messages from the rector come English first and then in Italian. So you're sure that you can do everything with English. Italian language is something on top if you want to profit also of the social life here in Italy.
Okay, great. Rutvi, I hope that answers your question. The next question is from Akash, who wants to know, can freshers without any work experience apply for an MBA to Bocconi University? To broaden this question, Veronica, if you can even talk a little bit about, if not, then what kind of work experience is it that you are looking for international students who are looking to apply for an MBA program from Bocconi University?
That's a very good question. I have been talking actually so far about Master of Science programs that you can enter directly after a bachelor program without any working experience, okay? Because it's, in Europe, we have a 3+2 system. So 3-year bachelor, 2-year master, and many students start directly after the bachelor. If you have been doing some sort of internship, but even extracurricular jobs, volunteering, and other things, we are very happy to evaluate it, because it means you are very proactive, you are a social person, you know how to organize events and so on, but it's not mandatory. But for MBAs provided by the Bocconi School of Business, we would require 3 to 5 years of job experience. In Europe, it's a 3-year bachelor, 2-year master, some work, and then an MBA. So the system probably is different from India or US.
Okay, great. Just to add on to that question, are you open, or do you even look at students who have done some sort of sports activities at a national level or at an international level? Are those this kind of students also who you would consider for an MBA? Is that something which criteria
Actually,
that
we have we have a couple of scholarship for national level sport or national, at least national or international sport level students who are allowed also some kind of, they can basically attend the program even if they will extend the duration of the program because they have their training, they have to do the matches or the Olympics, I don't know. And so we allow students to have an extended stay without paying more. This is one thing. The other thing is that we have an amazing, I didn't show it to you, sports center. So for sports like volleyball, football, water polo, rugby, we evaluate students the American way, so that they get scholarship in case they are interesting enough for the Bocconi team.
Interesting.
Bocconi sport team.
Interesting. Thank you so much. Akash, I hope that answers your question as well. I'm quickly moving on to the next question from Swara, who wants to know that the MSc degree, which is for 24 months, does it include any kind of internships within that 24-month period as well?
Yes, absolutely. So all our MSc that lasts 24 months include a compulsory internship that can, usually it's 3 months internship, usually is over the summer between year 1 and year 2, so that you make the most of your summer in Europe or elsewhere, but you can also do it in year 2. Consider that the second year, the academic, let's say, commitments are just the first 3 months, and then the last semester it's for your thesis, for internship, and for starting working.
Great, thank you so much. I'm going to take a next question from Bharat, who wants to know, and I'm sure this is related to scholarships, about who would be the ideal person for a student to have their letter of recommendation written by? I know this is a question, not just like, even if we go outside of scholarships, a lot of students want to know, even for their applications, like who is the ideal candidate to be writing their letter of recommendation, which holds so much importance in their applications journey. So if you can shed some light on that, Veronica.
Absolutely. I've already talked about the personal statement on how much we want to see your willingness to succeed, your willingness to work hard and to achieve your dream job. In this case, I would also say that letter of recommendation are welcome when it's either a professor, but most importantly, someone that have employed you. It can also be the restaurant around the corner from your house, but someone who can let us know about your soft skills, how good you are in interacting with people, in organizing an event, or in solving a problem. You know, it seems basic things, but this is what will bring you to be a successful manager also.
Great. So, moving on to the next, I see a couple of you have posted this question, so I'm just going to package it all together and put it across to Veronica. What they want to know is that not having any kind of work experience before they applied to an MS program, will that have any effect on, let's say, the post-study job opportunities which would be available to students, or would that sort of affect their chances of getting internships?
Not at all, because again, I mean, into the campus, it's really all English speaking and very multicultural. Yes, just when you step outside of this building, it's Italy 100%, and pizza and everything you can think about Italians. Wow. But Bocconi is more connected to the rest of Europe than to Italy itself. So you don't need to get to know Italian or Italian culture to live well with us or find a good job all over Europe. I'm sorry today we don't have any alumnus or student testimonial, but eventually we can connect these students with some Indian student who is actually in Milano, and they are enjoying it a lot. They don't want to leave.
Great. We did have that session. For all those of you who have missed it, it's available on our YouTube channel, on the Seed Global Education YouTube channel.
Yes.
Our previous masterclass with Bocconi University, with Veronica and a couple of Indian students who attended. You can go on to our YouTube channel and watch that and get some wonderful insights and the Indian experience in Milan. I know we have already run over time, but a couple of quick, very quick questions, Veronica, before I let you go. A very interesting question is from someone who wants to know, what are the, and I'm sure a lot of students have this question, although you did touch upon it, what are the minimum scores that you all look for, let's say, a GMAT or a GRE, or even an IELTS or a TOEFL score for international students that are applying?
Thank you. This is a very useful question for all the people who are listening today. So for IELTS or TOEFL, IELTS we need the 6, TOEFL 88. If you have been passing an exam of English language in your own bachelor degree, we don't need any other proof of your knowledge of English. We are a business school. English is the language of instruction, but we are not evaluating you on English level. We give it for granted in a way. On the other hand, we evaluate you on on the standardized tests that also allow us to compare a business student in India with a business student in Brazil, and the GMAT or the GRE are the only elements that help us with that. My suggestion is to aim at 600, 650 GMAT. Equivalent GRE, I never remember, it must be around 160.
Okay. All right. Great.
Even for the new GMAT, because I know there is a new GMAT. Yeah. The scores are slightly different, but with 600 or 650 in the new GMAT, you are definitely a great candidate.
Great, thank you so much. Moving on to our next question, which is by Rohit, who wants to know, can an individual with 14 months of work experience post-graduation, but from a non-finance background, still pursue an MSc in finance at Bocconi? Is Bocconi happy to accept students who are not from a financial background for the MS in finance programs, Veronica?
Yes, we are actually, because what we like is to set up a class very rich in terms not only of nationalities, but also in terms of backgrounds. At the master level, we let students work a lot within themselves, within groups, to do research, to do presentation, to do group works. And this is the idea, working with one student from India, one from US, one from Germany, one from Italy, will allow you to enhance also your intercultural skills. On the other hand, also students, we have been admitting students from biology, from humanities, from engineering, because you can all contribute to the subject. What you don't have to worry about is, without knowledge of finance, we organize preparatory courses. They last 10 days of August before classes start. It's a full-time 8 hours a day, but for all students with different backgrounds to catch up with all those topics.
Okay, thank you so much. Rohit, I hope that answers your question. There is another question from Swara, who wants to know, can we get an admission into Bocconi universities if we have 144 credits in total from our bachelor's degree? Is that a criteria with which
I think that at bachelor level, we get to 180 credits. With 144 credits, she can ask for transfer to our university. She will need to sit an admission test in any case. And she could enter the 3rd year of a bachelor. In my opinion, it's better at that point to graduate from the bachelor and come for the master.
Great, great. Thank you so much. One last question. I know a lot of you are still in the audience, but we have taken up a lot of Veronica's time. So I'm going to club all of these questions together, Veronica. Of course, all of these questions are around scholarships that Bocconi University offers. What are the different opportunities for scholarships for those who are looking at financial economics as an option? What are the various ways in which I know you've spoken about scholarships, but if you could just shed a final thought about scholarships and
Yes, can I
what is there to
share?
offer?
Sorry, I just
Great,
wanted to
great.
share
Yes,
again
yes.
my screen where I had a slide about scholarship because that's very important. Okay, so merit awards, scholarships, you don't need to ask for them, but you need to be sure to be academically strong, good GPA, good test score above 650 GMAT. Write a very nice personal statement about your interest, your strengths, your goals, your willingness to succeed, CV with good internship or extracurricular activities, and these are the elements considered for merit scholarship that you don't need to ask for. In case you're not awarded one of these merit awards, you can apply for financial aid. Here it's written need-based scholarship. This is a governmental scholarship by the Italian government and Lombardy region that again allows you 100% tuition fees. This just need a little paperwork for your family income. So we need some papers about your family revenues translated into English and Italian. Sorry, last but not least, we also have some loans options, a bit like in the UK, where you start repaying once you get a full-time job with a certain wage.
Great. Thank you so much, Veronica. It was a wonderful session. Thank you so much for joining us today and for answering everyone's questions. I know all of you want to learn a lot more. I am putting down some details in the chat window below, which should help you. And yes, we can stay connected and we shall come back to you shortly with more such masterclasses. Great. Veronica has it up on her screen. So for all those of you who've tuned in and all 200 of you who've stayed till the end, these are a few details which Veronica has put up on screen. Please make note of them and you can stay connected with Bocconi University and get to know more. Once again, thank you all for being a wonderful audience and for all of your questions. For those questions which were not answered, or for those of you who have more questions, you can have a look at the recording, which will be live on our YouTube channel by tomorrow. So you can gain insights into whatever that you have missed. I would like to take this opportunity once again to thank Veronica. Thank you so much for doing it.
Grazie,
have a great day.
Thank you.
Grazie. Bye. Thank you.
Arrivederci. See you in Italy.